Okay. And you said you wanted to share.
Is the recording on?
Yeah.
Okay. And this share screen is there. This is right there.
Wait, go down.
Okay. Yes, I'll go back.
This one.
Yes, I'll just start with this
one. Okay, close it. No. Can I? No. Stop sharing. Stop share. Yeah.
Okay.
Still
okay, very good.
Okay. You just, when you want to share the screen, just go here.
Yes.
And remember to minimize, okay? Just close.
Very good. Okay, here we are together again. Well, I felt last time our opening discussion was quite interesting. But today we're doing more humdrum stuff. We're basically reviewing the syllabus. It's of course essential that you understand how the course works. So we'll all have to go through this together. But if we finish relatively soon, I'm going to start lecturing about prehistory, and you'll understand sort of my approach, which is I'm going to say a lot of things that perhaps some of you don't get in the first instance, and so on, and there's theory and so on, and political references. And some of you on chat indicate that you're even more sophisticated than I am. So there you are. But meanwhile, I'm, as you'll see from the syllabus, I'm going to give you a lot of support. And to begin with, I just wanted to show you, I referred to this artist from Winnipeg, Monkman. And this is an example of one of his grand paintings. The paintings are done in the grand manner, classical European painting. But rather than the themes being the great heroes of mythology, of the Greek and Romans, or of the generals and statesmen of Europe, on the contrary, the heroes in Monkman's painting, the terms are reversed. And he uses Western painting techniques to basically, this is, this painting I think is called Resurgence of the People. And it's all about the renewal of the indigenous people of North America. And you see them crossing this body of water. Now, Ryan said, and it's quite suggestive, as Washington crossing the Delaware. It's basically taken from that, but it also could be seen as really the discovery of the many paintings of Columbus or the other early explorers discovering the New World. Well, basically, it's the indigenous peoples confronting the whites who are beleaguered on this island, so that there's a kind of reversal of the situation. It's the Aboriginals who are crossing the water, and the whites are beleaguered. They have no way of, they have no boat, they have no way, and of course they're all basically soldiers equipped with their weapons, their automatic weapons, but they're not much use to them. So as I say, his painting has created a sensation because he's reversing the terms of the way, the historic terms of viewing the history of Western civilization. And they're attracting a lot of attention. So I want now to simply now move to the syllabus, and hopefully we can review this together. I have a copy of the syllabus that I printed out, and hopefully you've done the same thing, or you're looking at the Unlearn version online, and we can go through the syllabus. And of course, if you have questions, you should basically put them in chat, or you can open up your mic and why not ask the question directly. So I'm sure you will have questions. So as I said, the course covers the period from prehistory down to the Renaissance, or we can also say the beginnings of capitalism. And the second part of this course, 136, carries the story to the present. Now, in terms of, first of all, I note under required textbooks, I note this work by E.H. Gombrich. And I did order a few copies of the bookstore, but the significance of Gombrich in the first instance is that this textbook is online. Most textbooks are not, and that means that you can access this textbook without paying $150 for a textbook. You don't have to pay anything to get this textbook. Furthermore, whereas most textbooks that you buy from the publishers, as a matter of fact, they may have interesting illustrations and so on, but the texts generally are not very interesting at all. They tend to be very bland in order to avoid giving offense. That's the basic reality. to maximize sales, you don't want to offend too many people. This is the American shtick. Don't offend anybody. Of course, they're offending everybody, but that's the idea. Don't offend anybody. So the textbooks tend to be extremely bland and uninteresting. On the contrary, Gombrich, who was a master historian of art, one of the great historians of art, it turns out also had a sense, not simply of the history of art, but he has a good understanding of the social, political, economic background to culture. And so I think it's quite a good text. And so why spend the money? So if you look further down through the syllabus, you'll see I've given you an outline of the reading schedule. In other words, if you want to follow along the lectures and you want background, you can read Gombrich's chapters according to the week of the term. We're in the first week, so we're the first chapter of Gombrich is called Once Upon a Time. And there's also the second chapter, The Greatest Inventors of All Time. It's about early history. So that deals with the textbook. Does anybody have any questions about this? Okay, good. The next topic deals with term work, tests, and evaluations. Well, basically we have the course, I think, can be divided into two parts. There is the examinations, and then there are the essays, of which there are two relatively short essays. Well, in terms of the tests, both of these tests will be take-home tests. The first of them actually occurs in the term, and then there's a final examination. And this is a critical part. The tests are going to be based on a series of questions. If you look further into the syllabus, let's see, maybe it's page 6 or 7 of the syllabus, there is a series of review questions listed. And there are 38 in total, I believe. And these are basically the questions that will appear on first the initial text and then the final examination. In the case of the term test, I will pick, let's say by the time we reach the first examination, we will have reached question 12. Well, I'll pick out of the 12 initial review questions, I'll pick 6, put them on this examination paper, and you choose to answer 2. Now, in terms of these review questions, I will, as we move along, carefully go over the review questions. I'm not going to particularize every detail of an answer, but I will give you, and this is what we're talking about when I say support, I will give you a clear view of how to approach an answer to each of these questions. And we will start many of the lectures by basically reviewing these review questions. So that, for example, the first lecture is going to be dealing with prehistory, if you have these review questions in front of you. And the first question is, what role did tools play in the development of human culture in the prehistoric age? The second question has to do with the invention of agriculture. Well, I'm going to lecture about these things. I may have time today, but I'm going to make sure that I carefully go over both of these questions. Maybe not in the next lecture, but in the lecture after that. I will make sure that you understand the answer to these both of these review questions. And of course, since all of these lectures are being recorded, this sort of review of these questions will be basically recorded, and you can go back and simply find these answers and base your study of these review questions um, based on these recordings. So that's why the recordings are very important. There should always be, all of these lectures should be recorded. And I'm trying to make a point of remembering to record each of these lectures. Are there any questions about what I've said? Somebody asks about the textbook. If you'll email me after the lecture finishes, I'll explain that. So just send me a message and I'll explain. I'll go back and explain it to you. And of course, that brings up if something is not clear or so you want more information and so on, just email me and I'll try and give you an answer as we go along. So then to go back, there are these two tests or examination. There's the term test, which is noted. You will have to basically, I'll hand out the paper on the 22nd of February. You'll have to get it back to me within a week. It will be marked, so you'll have some sense of how you're doing. And as I say, it'll be based on 2 of the 6 review questions. And then the final examination will encompass all of the review questions, will be divided into 3 parts, and you'll have to answer, out of 9 questions, which I'll give you, you will have to answer 3 for the final examination, which will, of course, occur after the end of the lecture period in April. Questions about the final examination?
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Yes, Avery has a question.
So the review questions on the syllabus are the questions that will be part of like the term test and the exam. Like those are the questions we should be expecting.
Yes, they'll be these exact questions. You have to beforehand. And one of the reasons, the logic behind this, I know there is a kind of Mickey Mouse quality to this, but you're here, one of the things you're trying to do is get an overall sense of Western civilization. There's an enormous amount of material here. And I'm trying to bring things to a kind of focus so that you get the gist of it by using these review questions. Believe me, if you have a grasp of the answers to these 38 questions, you have a pretty good understanding of early Western civilization. You'll have a real sense of what this is all about. The questions, I took some time in terms of devising these questions, and I think you will have a pretty good sense of things. So as I say, I'm trying to combine kind of sophisticated, theoretical, sort of referring to all kinds of things, including contemporary affairs, contemporary culture, and so on. At the same time, I'm trying to give you a foundation so that you can organize your study. So that's the examination. And then the last thing is, the last important thing are the essays, of which there are 2. And as I say, the minimum answer for the first essay is 15 1,500 words are required from you, written words in good English. And the second essay, a minimum of 3,000 words. Now, this is a required writing course, and therefore the regulations stipulate that in order to pass the course, you have to submit these 2 essays. If you don't submit those 2 essays, the Department of History is obliged to fail you in this course. So what I would say is, if you are, well, most of you I expect will present extremely good essays, but supposing your life is thrown into disarray and so on, and somehow you can't come up with the essays, you have to submit something in order to, maybe the examination questions are enough to get you through the course. So it's very important to write something and turn it in. Minimal submission is very important in order to pass this course. This is what I would say. Okay. There are these 2 essays, and I'll develop that further in the next little while. I want to now talk about the structure. In terms of getting work in, obviously I want work to be done in a timely fashion, hand them in. When you hand them in, the first thing is to upload them to UmLearn in this course. You upload them to UmLearn. You also send a copy to me directly. You send me an email with an attachment directly. That's the way you proceed to hand in your work. It's very important to keep a copy of all of your work as proof that you did the work, because there's always screw-ups and stuff gets lost and so on. So having backup, having proof that you've done the work is really important in terms of getting credit. Then there's a statement about your first test is on February 22nd, and the first essay is on the 1st of March. So you're certainly going to have some results on which you can determine, well, maybe I should drop out, so on. Maybe I should voluntarily withdraw. You'll have the basis for that before the 31st of March. Any questions about that? Somebody says, do I, PDF is best. Send your attachment in PDF. Yes, in terms of the test questions will appear in UmLearn. I'll post them in UmLearn. I prefer, people are constantly asking me this, what style? Okay, MLA is the style that I need. That's what I would like. And your grade will be a numerical grade. All of your grades are going to be numerical. And here on the syllabus, I list the letter equivalent to the numerical grade, but we're keeping the grades numerically so that at the end we can add them all up and determine a grade in a very clear and more precise manner. There is an appeal. You can appeal your term work, but you have to let me know if, for example, when you get your term test back and you say, well, hey, I thought my question was B plus A, and I'm graded down to a C. I don't like this. He must have been asleep. You say, Prof, no, you didn't give me, I don't think I got the right grade. you can appeal to me, but you have to do that within a week, 10 days after I hand the papers back. Then there's this statement about academic dishonesty. And listen, you don't want to screw around because part of the reason they say have you upload your answers and your essays on online is they check. They have these big machines. I don't know anything about it, but they go to the department and they feed this stuff into these gigantic machines who can now track down these plagiarized essays. So, some of these people, believe me, in my department are fanatics about this. And if they find a plagiarized essay, eureka, they go crazy. So don't start up with these people and just do your own work as best you can. That's, I think, the safe thing to do. Okay, now, I think we've completed most of this stuff. I want to get further into the essay, how to do the essay. And in terms of the essays are based on a certain website. I'm now looking for this website. Can you see? Can you see this Google screen? Is that visible to you? It should be. Anyway, there's this Google screen, and it says famous trials. Professor Douglas Linder. This is the website. Okay, and the essay work is based on these trials. Now, it's both essays are basically yes, the two most famous trials in the ancient world were the trials of Socrates, which is shown here, and the trial of Jesus Christ in Jerusalem, probably 32, 33 AD. Those are the two most famous trials that occurred in ancient history. And the essays are basically a comparison of these two trials. And of course, it's quite interesting because what Linder has done, he's assembled all of the major documents relative to these trials on each of these websites. We're looking at his account of the death of the trial of the death of Socrates. This is the painting. It's actually by a French revolutionary painter by the name of David, but it shows Socrates taking the poison. He was convicted and he was forced to drink poison as a way of execution. This certainly the trial and crucifixion of Jesus Christ was yet more famous, of course, because of course Christ was the founder of Christianity, and Socrates is considered to be the founder of ancient Greek philosophy. It's more complicated than that, but nevertheless, it is. Socrates invented the chat function, to put it there. He envisioned knowledge knowledge develops as a process, out of a process of dialogue between the master and the disciples. You had this dialectical or dialogical view of how knowledge is, and especially Socrates was concerned with ethical questions rather than metaphysical questions. But nevertheless, he's considered the founder of formal philosophy as a discipline. And of course, the Greeks, in terms of their contribution, one of their great contribution was rational thought, philosophy. So we have, on the one hand, the founder of rational thought, the other hand, who's, because of this, he gets out of line and he's killed by the state. Linder assembles all of the documents relevant to that. And then, of course, Jesus, who, of course, Jesus is a Jew. And he's completely immersed. Of course, they're living under the Roman Empire, but Jesus is a Jew in Palestine. He's surrounded by other Jews. And lo and behold, by claiming this, either he did or his disciples claimed that he was the Messiah, both the leaders of the Jewish community and the Roman state came down on him, and he was executed. And so we're looking at these two trials and executions. And of course, it turns out Jesus is the founder of this new religion. So we have, on the one hand, the achievements of Greek culture, which are considered to be the highlight of the pagan world in terms of Western civilization. Then we have the founder of this new Christianity, which is the founding religion of Western civilization. We're comparing the founding figures in both of these. And of course, then they're fused together, rationalism and Greek and Roman thought and Christianity, and lo and behold, we get Western civilization. So that's why we're focusing on this. Now, are there any questions about what I've said up to now? Okay, so the first, really, these essays, essay number 1 and 2 are linked together because the first essay is all about the sources. Linder has assembled the main texts that briefly describe the life and the thought of Socrates. He's also assembled through looking at the Gospels, but also other documents, all of the known sources that bear on the life and death of Jesus. And so what I want to get at in this first essay is what we call source criticism. Source criticism. That is to say, all serious history is based on the study of sources. That is to say, we just don't pull things out of thin air when we make assertions in history. No, everything has to be supported by evidence. And the evidence that is used by historians are those sources which are closest to the events, which have the highest degree of probability. It's a combination of these sources close to the events and rational analysis, which enables historians to come up with the most plausible explanations for why, for example, Socrates was given the poison, why he was convicted. So the first essay that you're going to do is basically an essay in source criticism. And what I've done in the syllabus is that if you look through the sort of discussion of the first essay, there are a series of questions that I pose in the first in the first essay. For example, um, I talk about the fact that two of the sources are Plato's account and also a disciple by the name of Xenophon left accounts of the trial and death of Socrates. Well, I asked the questions based on these accounts, determine as best you can what were the accusations that were made against the indictment. What were the basis of the indictment of Socrates? And then I asked, well, based on what you read, Plato and Xenophon, considering they were disciples and friends of Socrates, were they biased, or did they give an unbiased account of the death of their master? And you wanted to explain to me how you know they're biased. So, and then there's also then I do the same thing with the accounts of Jesus' death. Talk about the bias, the approach, who's writing the account. Are they prejudiced in one way or another? How do you know that? I want you to sort of get a sense of the kinds of questions that you put to historical evidence out of this essay. That's the main thrust of this first essay. That's the first essay basically is an essay on source criticism in order to give you a sense of how historians basically find plausible evidence on the basis of which they write narratives about significant historical events. That's one sense. And then second essay, which I'm not going to go into in great detail because I'll come back to it after you've done the first essay, basically asks more general, more theoretical questions about the relationship between religion and politics. Because at the end of the day, both the Jews and the Greeks had their own temple religions, and the temple religions were close to the state. So politics and religion were mingled together, both amongst the Jews and amongst the Greeks. And I want to, by discussing these two trials, to try and illuminate what exactly was the relationship between ideology, religion, and politics from the point of view of the Jews and from the point of view of the Greeks. That's the second essay, but I'm not going to deal with that in great detail. Well, I'll come back to these things as we go along. I just wanted to introduce you to what I'm asking you to do. So the first essay is basically, it's shorter. There's a minimum of 1,500 words you need to do, but of course you can go over that. And it's basically about the sources. How credible are the sources? The second essay is a more general essay, which sort of takes a larger view about the relationship between politics, ideology, and culture. So are there questions now about what I've said?
April, or sorry,
I've got another question.
Corey, to kind of circle you on kind of
Hello?
Yes.
preliminary.
Who's speaking,
Yeah.
please?
I think it's probably
Avery.
you guys kind of.
Oh, yes, Avery. You have another question.
For the essays, will there be a lot of background information, or like rather sources we would need to like cite? Like, would we need to do a lot of
No,
digging from like
no,
different?
that's another nice thing about Linder. He's not he's brought it together in such a way that you don't have to spend enormous amounts. You don't have to read tons of books in order to do these essays. No, it's all presented in a very concise way. The information is there. There's background on in each of these trials that quickly sort of explains the context in a way that's easily understandable, and at the same time, it's serious. It's serious scholarship. So that's the way it is. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Any other questions that you might have? Okay, so I've basically given you the main points. Now, very quickly, toward the end of the syllabus, there's a section called Student Resources. Now, very important is the Academic Learning Center. I don't, many of you have been enrolled in the first semester and you know about the Academic Learning Center, but they have all sorts of resources to help you write these essays, including tutors. And I'll have more to say about it a little bit later, but there are these people who sit there, and if you contact this Academic Learning Center, you can make an appointment with a tutor and say, well, I'm having real difficulty organizing my essay, or can you proofread my essay? Can you proofread my essay? I want to make sure the language is okay. You talk to the tutor, and this is a way in which you can get help in writing your essay. That's also, that's very important in terms, so I'll have more to say about that as we move on. But of course, beyond that, there are also listed here all kinds of supports, like the Indigenous Student Center, Student Counseling Service. Supposing there's a hassle, you think, I think your essay is worth 60 and you think it's worth 85. There's a real Donnybrook here. We can't reach any kind of compromise or anything. Well, you can go to this student support case management, and they can bring a case. They can help you launch an appeal. And so I think you should, if you get into this sort of situation in my course or some other course, why not? The profs are sometimes wrong, mostly not, but sometimes they're wrong. And so you need to defend yourself, is what I'm saying. Especially because this is so bureaucratized. The whole thing is so bureaucratized. My God, you can get crushed in these bureaucracies. And then there is, if things go really bad, if you get sick, or you're having psychological problems, they have some support. Listen, they've given you all this, but I would like them to have more support. One of the problems at the University of Manitoba, it's no secret, is that the students don't get as much support as they should. Come to think of it, neither do the profs. Help me. No, I'm joking. So and furthermore, and it's of course, one of the problems here is that the atomization of things, the individualization, the fact that it's so difficult to make a friend in this institution. It's notoriously difficult at the University of Manitoba. So there are all these problems. On the other hand, you actually can kind of get an education. You have to know whose course you're getting into. It's up to you, but you can find out who the good profs are, what the easy good courses are. There's a lot of information out there. You need to find those things out for yourself, and you can actually get at a relatively cheap price. Let's be realistic here. If you know the right courses to take, you can get a pretty good education. So with that, I'm going to close my discussion of the syllabus. Are there any points that you'd like to more information about, more discussion? I can We still have a little bit of time. I can actually begin. Yes, Sarah.
Hey, I had a question. So there are, certain grammar checking and spelling checking applications that people can download onto their computer, like Grammarly. Would those be allowed to be used when writing the essays?
I don't see why not. I don't see why that is. Certainly, of course. Yeah, sure. Maybe you could, maybe the other kids don't know about it. Could you give me some sense of on chat these references so that you'd help out some other students? Do you mind? Just noting where to go?
No, I don't mind. I'll send a link.
It's not a problem? Okay. So are there any other points before we move on, get into the actual course? So the first lecture basically deals with what we call prehistory. Formally, scholars and historians had this view that history begins with writing, with evidence. I just discussed the whole question of evidence. What we know, for the most part, about Jesus and Socrates comes from these written sources, of course. So it's associated with writing. However, the reality is that human being, that there is a whole prehistory. Before writing was invented roughly 5,000 years ago. Before that, there was this long prehistory, and it is a genuine history. There was a continuous progress over millions and thousands of years. Humanity developed from its early beginnings, and you'll see the record of this, which we've reconstructed. Archaeologists have largely reconstructed, and it's pretty impressive. I mean, the knowledge that has been accumulated about the early history of humankind is quite amazing. But before, of course, Mesopotamian or Egyptian civilization or Chinese civilization, there's this whole prehistory that I want to talk about today. So the earliest remains of what we call proto-humans, the earliest remains that we have, we're talking about bones now, skulls, etc., or other fragments. It used to be dated between 3 and 4 million years ago. The first so-called hominids or early humans have been discovered. Of course, in Africa, it's generally understood that is where the origins of humanity is to be located, or was located. However, recently, within the last year or so, archaeological investigation has revealed traces of early human proto-humans as early as 6 million years ago, as early as fragments of skulls and bones, which have been dated back to 6 million years. It's amazing. Now, these people, of course, their brains were quite small, and we can link them with the overall evolution eventually into human beings. But clearly, these people were quite similar to apes and monkeys and so on. And when we think that civilization, as I already remarked, is no more than 5,000 years old, and by civilization, I mean agriculture and cities, social classes, early states, that's civilization. And that's when history is thought to have begun with, part of this was the invention of writing 5,000 years ago, civilization. But when you think of 6 million years ago, and civilization is yesterday in comparison to this record. It dates back to 6 million years. there is a long, long prehistory to humanity. Before we get to civilization, there's this incredible record. Now, of course, we, as far as we understand it, the first humans who actually were like us, we call them Homo sapiens. You certainly come across this term, Homo sapien, Homo sapien. Man who knows. Of course, man obviously is a certain bias, but Homo sapien. Well, the first bones and skulls that we find, traces of these Homo sapiens evolving out of apes and monkeys, dates back 100,000 years ago. The first evidence we have of Homo sapiens comes about 100,000 BC. So the first hominids, pre-ancestors, date back 6 million years ago. But it's only about 100,000 BC that what we consider to be Homo sapiens have been discovered by archaeologists, what I'm saying. And we know that Homo sapiens had competition because between 100,000 and 10,000 BC, there was another group of humans called Neanderthals. There were Homo sapiens and there were Neanderthals. And these two groups, the Neanderthals were recognizing the humans, but they, in terms of their bone structures, in terms of the size of their brains, their genetic makeup, we know that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens were different. We also know that they were in contact with one another and they mated with one another. They got together. And we know that, so there was a certain intermixture. Some archaeologists and anthropologists argue that these two groups were in competition with one another, which raises a theoretical point. In these early societies, how much conflict was there? There are a lot of archaeologists and anthropologists who say, as a matter of fact, there was very little conflict. We're now talking about the origins of war and social conflict. Other anthropologists, some anthropologists say, and archaeologists say, no, human beings were fighting even before the invention of civilization, fighting with one another. There was clearly war and social conflict from the earliest possible. I would say that the largest number of anthropologists and archaeologists basically say no, based on what we know about hunting and gathering societies. And we do have a lot of evidence about hunting and gathering societies because hunting and gathering societies still exist on Earth. 25% of the Earth is occupied by hunting and gathering societies as I speak. And we know that the amount of social and political conflict amongst these hunters and gatherers is much less than under conditions of civilization. Civilization is highly conflictual. Wars and class conflict characterize civilization. Well, hunting and gathering societies, indigenous culture has much less of this. And so it's argued by scholars that early human beings were much less conflictual than they were subsequently as civilization began. So next class, I'm going to speak a little bit more about hunting and gathering societies, and then I'm going to be talking about the invention of civilization. And so I'll see you then on Friday when we'll continue this narrative. If you have further questions at the beginning of next class, just put it to me, either in chat form or bring them up, because we've been able to carry on an oral conversation during this lecture. There's no problem. So see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.